Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. The last time I sat down to film a video I was in Canada, and obviously I am no longer in Canada, I am back at home in York, but I do have a green wall which I'm really rather fond of. I think we might do the whole wall because at the moment it's just a fireplace in this beautiful green colour. So things are definitely changing around here, but I'm back home and we had the best trip. It was the best time of my life, both of our lives, and obviously we went over there to see Ariel get married, and we made it kind of the biggest trip we've had. Ben and I have not really been abroad together much. We've done like a day trip to Paris and we've gone to see family in Ireland, but apart from that, nothing. And so it was, yeah, the best time. And of course, because it is me, I have a little show and tell to share with you, and I want to show you a few of my things and just, I guess, talk a bit about the trip, and actually just how much I fell in love with Canada. Ben and I both came home and were like, could we move there? We really loved it. So if you're Canadian watching my channel, I love you and I love your country. But I thought I would show you the little bits I bought and then also talk a bit about Anne of Green Gables as well. I thought I would just show you my little basket. These are all the things, kind of all things I bought in Canada, but this basket I keep in my room, in my office, because I'm constantly bringing things from one room to another. And so I put them in my little basket, but it just feels very wholesome. Before I start this video talking about other Canadian things, I have to mention Anne of Green Gables. Ariel and I have actually recently filmed, or when I was in Canada filmed, a video about Anne of Green Gables and also kind of about Ariel's wedding, because my relationship now with Anne of Green Gables will always be tied together with the memory of Ariel's wedding, mainly because Lena and I gifted Ariel a copy of Anne of Green Gables that we'd both annotated, and this is my first time ever reading Anne of Green Gables, and this is an edition, and again in that video I do a full haul of many editions of Anne of Green Gables, but it was my first time ever reading it and it very quickly became one of my favourite books of all time. And this is a Prince Edward Island edition, the Kindred Spirits edition, that is sold in Nova Scotia where we went. I was not expecting to fall in love with Anne of Green Gables in the way that I did, which is why I came back with so many different editions to it, because that's what I do when I really love a book. I want to collect the editions, and I loved everything about it. The descriptions were beautiful. I think Anne as a character, and c'est moi, like I feel very close to Anne and her drama, and the way she kind of navigates her way around the world and how flawed she is, and also how lovable as well within her own flaws. I also felt, and this is something I didn't mention actually in the video of Ariel, which I feel like I should have mentioned, this is also one of the most beautiful descriptions of grief, I think, and loss that I've read in a book. And I actually cried Anne of Green Gables, and I don't think I've ever cried at a book before. I felt very moved by the descriptions of grief, and they felt very resonant of kind of my own experiences navigating kind of grief and loss, and I was moved by how much this book captured my heart in its pages, and I felt like it was really funny, it felt very modern, it felt very, I just felt like everybody should read it, and I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much and to feel as connected as I did with Anne of Green Gables. So this is a recommendation from me if you haven't yet read it, because I don't normally read children's literature and I don't really like children's literature that much. It's not really books I tend to navigate towards, but I cannot recommend Anne enough. I show all of my different editions of Anne in that video, but just in case you haven't watched that, Ariel got married at Lunenburg Bound, which is our favourite bookshop in Lunenburg, and as a part of that we got a little book voucher, and I got a little stamp which says, "I got this book Ariel and Connor's wedding, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, August 16th, 2025, which is lovely. So again, this is Anne of Avonlea, which is the second book which I have not yet read, but I did also really quickly want to mention a book that I read on my way back from Canada, which Ariel gifted me about a year ago, which I finally got around to reading, and it is The Alpine Path, The Story of My Career by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and it is a really short kind of autobiography of Lucy Maud, and I really loved reading it, and it's also made me want to just read more of her writing because I really loved this. One of my favourite moments in The Alpine Path, which Ariel had sent me I think when she first read it, was the fact that Lucy Maud Montgomery actually visits York, and in York in an antique shop she buys some little little spaniel Staffordshire dogs like I have, and mine are obviously also from New York, and so I actually feel like I decorate my house in the way that Lucy Maud Montgomery decorated hers, which I love. But if you haven't read this and are already, you know, a fan of the Anne of Green Gables series, this is, I feel like, a must read. So this trip to Canada for us was all centred around Nova Scotia, which of course is where Ariel lives, and she got married in Lunenburg. And we started off in Halifax, but we rented a car, which Ben and I loved doing, and it basically meant that we got to stop absolutely everywhere. If there was a bay, Ben and I were there. And I kind of loved that because we got to explore so many places that were slightly off the beaten track, as well as some really popular tourist sites as well. And yeah, I fell in love with Nova Scotia. By the end of it, I was feeling weirdly patriotic about Nova Scotia. I came back with a bumper sticker for our car. And one thing I tried to do when we were travelling there is try and get as much by like relatively local artists or handmade stuff as possible. But I have to say, the first thing I was desperate to do when we arrived in Canada was go to Tim Hortons. Now, I know they have Tim Hortons and you can get Timbits and an ice cap in England too. I understand, they're not just in Canada. But there was something for me about having my very first Canadian Tim Hortons, as God intended, experience in Canada. And so I had many visits to Tim Hortons on my trip. So of course, because it's me, I had to get some Tim Hortons merch, and I actually decided to get their retro mug, mainly because Ariel says that this is the logo she remembers seeing as a kid, and also we did see, I think, one or two that still had this kind of original look to them. One of my first purchases in Canada was to Tim Hortons, and I donated a lot of money to the Tim Hortons cause while I was there. The first part of our trip in Nova Scotia was to Halifax, and in Halifax I discovered my favourite gift shop, which not only did I buy my copy of Anne of Green Gables, I also bought just little things that I thought I would share with you. The first thing is, Ben and I have decided that we were going to start collecting magnets just to remember our trips, and I did originally want to have really cheesy tacky magnets, but Jennifer's in Nova Scotia is just too good, and instead I got these two really beautiful magnets of Nova Scotia and also Halifax, because I did want one specific to Halifax. This fridge magnet also started an obsession with the Blue Nose, which is a really famous ship, I don't know what boat, which I had never heard of until coming to Canada and discovered in Nova Scotia that it's the biggest thing. Ariel even got married in Lunenburg, where the Blue Nose was built, but I soon discovered that it's on money, that it's on their driving licenses, and I just kept finding Blue Nose. This was my first Blue Nose thing. That definitely became a bit of a theme on the trip. There are so many lovely things to do in Halifax. I think walking along the boardwalk was like one of our favourites, and also the National Maritime Museum, which obviously has a really big Titanic section in it, but it also, in fact, I didn't buy anything Titanic related, and I did quite a few Titanic things on this holiday. Something's wrong with me. I can't believe I came away with nothing related to the Titanic. But when we were there, we did the museum, and not only with the Titanic museum, there was a whole section on the Halifax explosion, which I had never heard of before, and that started a real big obsession, like a new history interest. And I think if you're going to Halifax, I definitely recommend going there just to read more about the Halifax explosion, the Halifax disaster, and I didn't know anything about it, and now I feel like I need a novel about it, I need a TV series about it. It was just incredible, so definitely Google that if you've never heard of it before. The whole trip I was just very dedicated to the theme of Canada. Like, everything had to be Canadian. Like, when we went to Cove's in Halifax, I had maple syrup ice cream. Anything I could do, everything, you know, the cheese I got was from Prince Edward Island, like Anne of Green Gables cheese. We got the Anne of Green Gables raspberry cordial. Like, everything we were buying, I was just like, one, it had to be made in Canada, or in fact, I discovered Captain Crunch, which technically is made in Canada, but I don't think that's Canadian. Yeah, there was just so many things to do in Halifax. I've completely lost my thread now, so I'm now thinking about Captain Crunch. But to go back to Halifax, we also went to the Nova Scotia Art Gallery as well, which I always love to go to an art gallery, but I discovered Maud Lewis, who I have seen her paintings before, I think through Ariel, and her work is incredible, and I fell in love with the colours and how bright they are. I just really love the way Maud Lewis captures the joy in life and in nature, and whether it's by the sea or whether it's kind of, you know, like farmland. And I especially love her portraits of cats. There's like a really famous one which is the 3 black cats, and also one with the white cats, which I kind of regret not buying, and I do feel like I could definitely have a little Maud Lewis collection. But in the art gallery, the most amazing thing is there is actually Maud Lewis's house there, which you can see, and they have really carefully restored it and recreated. Well, it's her actual house, but they've restored it. And you can see how, very similar to kind of the Bloomsbury group, everything is painted, and they were able to recreate that, and it's just beautiful. But another painting that I really liked when we were kind of looking around was one of a man and woman in a car. You cannot tell me this is not me and Ben going around in our car. Like, glasses on, scarf waving in the wind. This is Ben and I exploring Canada in the summer. That is exactly our rental car that we had. I just love how vibrant and full of life and movement, and just also I love the white and red house. So I was obsessed with all the different coloured houses in Nova Scotia as well. I now know the reason for so many colourful houses is often because the paint that was used was because of, you know, leftover paint from boats and things. But this is Ben and I on our holiday. How lovely of Maud Lewis to paint this for us. Because I loved the picture of the 3 black cats so much, I got a little bookmark of it, and it's also like a really beautiful bookmark because it's all kind of soft. But I was kind of thinking about my luggage when I wanted to bring back like 3 different prints. I decided to maybe get the 3 black cats at a different point, but I could not leave behind the picture of Ben and I. After visiting Halifax on our way to the South Shore, we went to Peggy's Cove, which again is one of the most amazing places I've ever been to. It is touristy, and so it is a little bit more busy, but it was so dramatic that I didn't expect, in a way I didn't expect it to be. But also, it just looked so Canadian. Like, that's kind of how I felt, which I'm aware of, if you're from Canada, it must feel really, I guess, weirdly patronising to be like, it feels so Canadian, but it really just had a lovely feel about it, and the colours and the boats, and, you know, the whole theme of this trip was the Maritimes, and I feel like Peggy's Cove is really the Maritimes. I also tried lobster for the first time. I've never had lobster before, and I had a lobster roll. Wasn't a fan, but I did want to do it while I was at Peggy's Cove because I think that's like the thing to do, and I also felt like I couldn't go to Canada to go to Nova Scotia in particular and not have lobster, and so I did. I wouldn't get it again, but I'm glad I had the experience of sharing a lobster roll with Ben. Ben and I spent so long on the rocks next to the lighthouse, and you just are looking out to the Atlantic Ocean. It's like the closest I've ever been to the Titanic wreck, and it was so atmospheric, and it was kind of, the whole holiday was really warm, but it was foggy and humid, and it just felt really epic, as well as having kind of the element of kind of, you know, like a small village feel. You had this really kind of majestic lighthouse on these rocks, and it is incredible. And I think even though it is busy, it was just a really lovely place to visit. It's also the place I had my favourite ever ice cream, which was a soft serve ice cream with Captain Crunch on top. And there began a love story between me and Captain Crunch. I knew I wanted a print of Peggy's Cove, and I chose this one by Kat Frick Miller, and her paintings I fell in love with. Ariel has a Peggy's Cove, I think it's Peggy's Cove, in her bathroom at home, and I kept just seeing all of her prints everywhere, and I now want to collect so many more. I think next time I go to Canada, I am just going to be really stocking up and buying ones of different locations. So this is, I think, is one of many. And then a little bit later on in LaHave, I think it was LaHave, I bought some really beautiful Christmas cards, Peggy Cove Christmas cards, which I can't wait to send people because it's got the little church and the little boat, and I'd love to see Peggy's Cove actually in winter, although I can imagine it'd be super sippy. But yeah, I really love this, and so I now follow her on Instagram, and I want to buy many, many more things from her, and so I think next time is really good because I've now found a few kind of local artists, and I'm not even going to show you everything I bought because there were quite a few things, but there are things now that I want to go back to and buy or follow, and yeah, it's just a really good time to discover things for me to buy. Next I have probably one of the best things I've ever bought in my entire life. Quilted hanging of Peggy's Cove and the blue nose. And a seagull, Ben's favourite animal. If anyone remembers, Ben got hit on the head by a seagull and it was one of the best days of my life. This is beautiful, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to hang it yet, but it's going to hang forever in my heart because I love this, and I also love that someone made this. Someone's put time into it and it is beautiful. I think we're going to hang it in Ben's office because we really want to paint that room blue, kind of like a light blue, so it'll be perfect in there. And now we're going to have a whole maritime theme. If you thought the quilt was good, meet my handmade crochet lobster. How joyous is he? Obviously I got this to remember my lobster roll, but also because when I went on holiday, and I do this wherever I go, I kind of pick a theme that I'm like, okay, this theme is going to be, this holiday is going to be lobsters. This holiday is going to be, I don't know, heather. And I'll try then and find loads of things that are linked to that. And that's like how I think about places. I'm like, oh yeah, that was the holiday with lobsters. I know that might not make any sense, but I was obsessed with finding anything that had a lobster in. And you know, even for example, when we went to Canada, I specifically bought a beach towel that had lobsters on, and I bought a shirt that had a lobster on. I just had this vision of this holiday having a lot to do with lobsters, and I did see quite a lot of lobsters, but I bought this one because I love crochet items like this. I decided, I think when I was with Ariel, that this in fact would be my tree topper. This will be the top of my Christmas tree. It kind of has like a little thing there that I can kind of put onto the tree, and we don't have a star at the top of our Christmas tree, but we have the star of the show. We have the lobster, and I think this is the best kind of lobster related thing I think I could have bought in Canada, and I'm so chuffed. Because I then got obsessed with the lady who made the lobster, I went back and bought multiple things actually, but I also bought a little seal because I saw my first ever seal. I didn't manage to get any video footage of it, and I didn't see it on land. I saw the seals playing in waves. But I don't think, and my mum says that I must have seen them before growing up, going to the northeast and being in the northeast, especially around Tynemouth and things, in Newcastle on Tyne, but I cannot remember seeing a seal. I'm sure I probably did as a kid growing up there, but I saw seals, and so of course I needed a crochet seal. While in Canada, Ariel and I did an awful lot of charity shopping, mainly because it's like one of our favourite things to do together, and I found the best teacup set I could have ever bought. The funny thing is, this is made in England and it is a Nova Scotian souvenir, but Ariel did say that so many kind of teacups and things you find at China, they're nearly all made in England in charity shops, which is interesting because I didn't know that. So I have a Nova Scotian little teacup set with a lobster, a seagull, a lighthouse. It's just, I've never actually seen a teacup with this kind of design on it, but it's just like a proper souvenir teacup. And I think, well, I was going to put it in our bathroom, but since I've come back home and realised I live with Branwell, our little black cat, I don't know if that's a good idea because the girls would be fine. Sybil maybe would knock it, but Branwell would be so curious. But this is like incredible. Just like the colours. Another brilliant lobster adjacent purchase. When I arrived at Ariel's house, and that's another thing I should say, that after years of watching Ariel decorate and renovate her beautiful house, seeing it in person was, one, because whenever we video call now, I know where she is. Like, I know what it feels like to walk along, you know, the halls and things. But that was lovely. But when I did arrive, Ariel always buys me a little thing, and she had been charity shopping, I think, at one of the charity shops that I bought my lobster teacup from, and she bought me this perfectly Claire gift, which is a little royal teacup and saucer of the royal visit to Canada in 1959. Now, I don't even like the monarchy. I'm anti-monarchist, but I love royal memorabilia. I have to say, this is the most beautiful royal memorabilia that I own because of the really stunning maple leaf and the really beautiful colours. And it was, in fact, I think she kept it on because it was $3. I had so many good purchases in Canada that were so cheap. But this is just very clear and I am going to keep it somewhere really special. I'm just looking through the basket of things I bought from Canada and some of them are so random that I'm not going to show you. For example, I don't know if you want to see these. I bought some doilies. Are these called doilies? These little little placemat. Are these doilies? So I have a few. I think I have more actually next door. So I have, I think 4 little ones, or was it 2 little ones and 1 big one? I now can't remember. To put on our coffee table. Because our coffee table is glass, and which is fine, but it's really, you know, marks easily, I guess. And so I got these really little handmade vintage things from a charity shop, and they were like 50p each. So it's a pretty good deal, but I bought lots of random things like this that I thought I would just take home, and these were really actually good because when I was packing I wrapped my teacups in them, so they had a dual purpose, but I also just think they're really pretty. What I have learned, especially in the last few years, is that my decoration style, and you don't even see the most of it in this room, but I have cross stitches all around the house, just kind of old lady furniture everywhere, and I have discovered that most things that people would probably maybe throw away or just not want anymore because they're not in fashion, I will go to a charity shop and I will pay good money for them. But I had some very good purchases. I'd completely forgotten that while in Jennifer's we also bought this little guy, little seagull that goes on a little piece of driftwood, and we did have this in the bathroom but Grandma had already knocked it over. But I bought this because of Ben's dislike of seagulls and my love of them. So he can just always be taunted by a seagull wherever he goes. But also, again, it's all handmade, but Nova Scotian driftwood. How beautiful. I realised because of all my little purchases, I actually skipped around a lot of our trip. But to go back to Lunenburg where Ariel got married, of course her getting married, I think seeing your best friend get married is like the best thing. I bought a lot of books in Lunenburg. It was really beautiful. We obviously had the day before, we had a dinner, then we had the wedding in the bookshop. Then the next day we actually went to the beach where I didn't intend to go swimming, but instead I fell face first into the water in my beautiful Regency dress that my mum had made me, and it was lovely. But I think my favourite thing we did in Lunenburg, apart from obviously watching Ariel get married and actually just spending time with Ariel, was we went on a historic tour of Lunenburg by horse in a little cart. Ben, Lena and I had the best time, and in fact this was Lena's second time going on the horse, and got to learn all about the history of Lunenburg and the houses and the kind of people who lived there. And it was also just lovely because there are so many unique buildings there. Like there is a house that they call the wedding cake house because it's kind of like so ornate and pink, and just seeing the architecture, I think the architecture was something I found really fascinating, including the Lunenburg bump, I think it was called, that kind of like is a window like that sticks out, and things like I think Widow's Walk where the women would look out and see if their husband had made it home safely from the sea. And I think going to the Maritime Museum, and then not the Maritime, it was the Fisheries Museum I think, and just realising, just learning so much about kind of the industry and the grief and loss that comes along with it as well. But yeah, we really love Lunenburg, but obviously it was for a very special reason. Our neighbours have just started drilling, so this is a quick apology if you hear them because I've been trying to film this video so many times and taking breaks whenever they were drilling, and I'm hoping I'll be able to edit it out, but if you can hear it, I apologise, and we're just going to have to work for it together. As I mentioned before, the blue nose is quite a big thing, and this is now my blue nose dedicated section. Before we went to Lunenburg, we didn't really understand the significance of the blue nose, but then after Ariel getting married in the boat shed, it just felt like also a symbol of not only Nova Scotia but also her wedding. And everywhere we went, we kept seeing these really cute little mini blue noses, and we were like, oh yeah, we'll buy one, we'll buy one. Then when it came to us actually buying one, for some reason, everywhere we went, they were either sold out or we just couldn't remember which shop we'd seen them in and ended up going everywhere. And so we actually left Lunenburg without being able to find a blue nose, which is ridiculous because there must have been there. So despite being in a place that had loads of gift shops almost dedicated to the blue nose, we suddenly just couldn't find one. And so we actually decided, or Ben decided, that he would just build his own, and he bought a blue nose model ship kit. The paints aren't included, so we'll have to do some research to find out the exact paints of the blue nose. If you don't already know, Ben builds Warhammer, so he can definitely build me a little ship. But we really wanted an actual ship decoration because they're the ones we were seeing all over Halifax and Nova Scotia. And then when it came, especially when we went back to Halifax, we could not find any. And then in the airport, we saw this little wooden one, which I don't know if I want to put on the tree or whether I just want to put up in our bathroom, because we did get a little, I always pronounce wrong, a little boy, the little floating things. Ben bought one of those and we've hung that in our bathroom. And so I'm thinking maybe we should put a little blue nose in the bathroom too. But the one thing I'm going to do the next time we go back to Halifax and go back to probably Lunenburg as well, I'm going to go and buy a million little blue noses. One thing I did buy in Lunenburg that had the blue nose on was this magnet, which is like my favourite magnet now that I bought in Canada. And I really wanted to find, I spent ages trying to find the right one because, as I said before, I became obsessed with the registration plates in Nova Scotia with the little blue nose in the middle and the numbers on either side. And I also loved that it's Canada's ocean playground, and so I'm really glad I got to bring one home with Lunenburg on. One really random thing I bought because of Ariel, completely inspired by her because she always wears kind of claw clips in her hair, and I have never worn one and I've never owned one, and I've become a bit obsessed now. My hair's long enough. But I bought this little cat claw clip because I fell in love with Max, her cat. So many of my videos and pictures of staying with Ariel is just of Max. I became obsessed and I became friends with Max by the end of it. Max was on my lap, Max purred for me, and so I love that I have a little bit of Max with me. One of the last things I want to show you we bought in Mahone Bay, which I think actually was Ben and I's favourite place that we visited together while we were on the South Shore. And when I was there, in fact everywhere I discovered in Nova Scotia has Amos pewter shops. The Mahone Bay Amos pewter shop is the original one. And when we were going around everywhere, I was like, why is there pewter everywhere? And I discovered like it's just a big thing. I'm not quite sure why. I probably should have done research on that. But I bought this really beautiful maple leaf pewter necklace and I wore it the day before Ariel's wedding and after. And so it's just really beautiful and really special, and I knew I wanted to come home with a little maple leaf necklace, and so I am happy that it's in pewter because it seemed to be a big theme. And also we got it in Mahone Bay, which, as I said, we loved, with the free churches, and again, just so beautiful. Mahone Bay was also the place that had my favourite museum, apart from the National Maritime Museum with the Halifax disaster, because that is pretty epic. The Mahone Bay Museum was definitely like my favourite, I guess, local museum we went to, and we went to some really lovely ones, but there was something special about that museum, so I definitely recommend, if you are kind of travelling that way, to go to Mahone Bay. Of course, while we were there, I pretty much had everything and anything that was maple flavoured. I had sweets, ice cream, obviously maple syrup, but also in the airport I bought this maple tea by Canada True, and it has now become one of my favourite teas. It is so lovely. I have since discovered that it costs so much money to get in the UK, so if anyone is in Canada and would like to gift me lots of maple tea, please let me know, because I will pay you good money to get more of this tea in England. While I'm talking about food, I can't make a video about our trip to Canada without mentioning poutine. Poutine is one of my favourite meals of all time. Chips and gravy already is one of my favourite things that I eat quite regularly. Add cheese curds in there, which we just don't have that in the UK. We did have a place in York at the Christmas market that did poutine, and that was delicious. But I was so excited to go to Canada, and Ariel said to me I wasn't allowed to eat poutine without her, and then every day we were together we went to a different place to try poutine. We basically went on a mission to find our favourite poutine. This is a mission, of course, that Ariel will continue without me. I will have to wait, but I think I did find my favourite poutine. I also tried McDonald's poutine, which I actually quite liked. It was also really interesting because both Ariel and I had different favourites, and we looked for very different things in Poutine as well. And so I'm excited for my trip back just to continue my side of the Poutine tasting. So that is pretty much everything we bought in Canada. And I guess sometimes when buying things, you kind of want to condense your trip into them, and you want them to kind of capture the fun you had and all the different places you went. But honestly, this trip was just too good. Like nothing will ever match up to it, I think. You know, we went swimming in a lake like multiple times, and just fell in love with the Maritimes and the landscapes and the colours, and you know, just driving along these amazing long roads and just discovering random bays and kind of little secret beaches everywhere. And even though it was super dry, it was so beautiful, and it was a dream. It was a complete dream. The trip was the longest one Ben and I have ever taken, but crucially, we didn't want to come home. Like, we wanted to stay, and the blues I felt after, and even making this video I've had to wait because I just felt sad about not being there anymore. And I think normally when you get towards the end of the holiday, you're like, oh, I can't wait to be home, and we were a bit like, yeah, we could make a home over there. But yeah, we fell in love with it, and I hope that I got to share a little bit of my Canadian joy with you, and I look forward to talking more about Anne of Green Gables in the future. Now I have a new favourite book, and also just, yeah, next time I'll bring you with me and I'll do a full-blown video about it. I hope you've enjoyed this haul and little snippets of our trip in Canada, and if you're here with me now watching this, please leave me either a maple leaf or a Canadian flag emoji, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye!